I'm Linda Michalowski. I'm the Vice Chancellor for Student Services and Special Programs at the State Chancellor's Office in Sacramento, and very happy to be able to share these wonderful leaders and their excellent programs with you to, helping share experience and knowledge is one of the main purposes of this summit. So hopefully they'll give you some great ideas to bring back. We're going to try to make sure that there's time for questions and discussion at the end, so you'll be able to share some of your experiences and questions as well. Okay, but before I do that, I know we ran short of handouts. In addition to posting the video of this entire proceeding, we will make these PowerPoints available after the fact. I think you'll be able to access them on the FACT site and on the Chancellor's Office Veterans page as well. So, if you're worried about not being able to do that, if you want to give me your card or a note with your email address, I'll be glad to send it to you when I get back to Sacramento. By way of introduction, you've heard a lot of talk about the fact that we have a large and growing number of veterans in the California community colleges. And we have been, tracking this for now a few years. We have two ways of tracking it. One is every year we collect a report from the financial aid offices that asks them how many students use their GI Bill benefits over the course of the year. So that's an unduplicated count of students year long. We also access data from the Veterans Affairs that takes a snapshot of the number of veterans using their benefits in a California community college every April. So that's only a 1-month figure, but it's been tracked over a long period of time, so it's very useful in seeing the trend. And the trend is astonishing. From our annual reporting through the financial aid offices, in 2008-09, we had 26,272 vets drawing their benefits. In 2009-10, that number increased by 40.4%. And again, last year in 2010-11, it increased by 25.7%. This growth is huge, and it's going to continue. So, that is just a sign of how important this work is that we're doing here today. And similarly, if we look at the VA's April enrollment report, in 2009, there were 17,344 vets drawing their benefits in April. A year later, it had increased by 60.6%. And again, in 2011, it had increased by 13.5%. So the numbers are huge. We are going to begin collecting information on veterans through our MIS data, but I was interested to hear one of the presenters say this morning that they find that a lot of veterans do not indicate that they're veterans when they enroll at the university. I think it was the fellow from CSU. But but it will give us another source, and to the extent that we can identify veterans in the MIS system, we'll be able to see what happens to them. What are they taking? How are they doing? Where are they going? So that will be an excellent source of information. So that data element has been announced. It's voluntary next year, but then it will be required of all colleges, and we'll have that to use going forward. So now, without further ado, I want to introduce the first of our panelists, because our job is to share campus experience with you. And so I want to introduce Magdalena Torres from Santa Barbara City College, and she will talk about the wonderful work they're doing there.
I can hold on to this, right? Okay, good afternoon. First of all, I am Magdalena Torres, and I've had the honor, and it is an honor, to work with the Veterans Program for 37 years. I've been at City College for 41, but 37 working with veteran students. Our program was established in 1974. SBCC has maintained a Veterans Office, a program in a sense, throughout the years. In 2004, two offices were obtained. In 2008, an additional office was obtained for what we call a resource and student study use. It's a very small office, but there is a computer there available and students can come in and use it. Currently, our facility includes 3 offices located in our East Campus Office Center. I am the Veterans Program Advisor, the certifying official, and anything else that needs to be done. We have Veteran Work Study Office, and we have Veterans, the small resource office where students can study, and also I have off-campus agencies that come in and we'll have office hours there. We employ 5 VA work study students on campus, and without them, I couldn't do the things that I do. They help me with everything from making telephone calls once a week, twice a month. We try to call every single veteran in our program. They help me with that. They help me with the one-on-one experience of the students. We also place 10 students per semester at our Veterans County Service Office. That we do every semester. Currently, we have 210 students receiving benefits, and this includes 20 veteran dependents and dependents of veterans, and we have approximately 1,065 veterans and some active duty personnel enrolled on campus, and they are self-identified. And many of them are beginning to use our support services. They come over and we refer them, we take them over, we help them with whatever they need. Our services provide the one-on-one orientation and support in applying to SBCC, applying to the VA Vaughn app, and hands-on one-on-one support in registering for courses. We do that. And financial aid FAFSA, the online application. We have peer support. The students provide support to each other, mentoring the study area. Adaptive software program we don't have, but we're working on that. Use of printing, copying, and faxing, that I do allow. The students come in, they need something faxed, they need something taken care of, we do that. Community service agencies hold office in our Veterans Resource Office. We also provide, and I didn't put this on here, but we provide deferrals and, of course, deferrals for their fees and priority registration. Our office, our program, received the California Community College John W. Rice Diversity and Equity Award in 2010 for our service to our veterans. It was really an honor, very much an honor, and you can see all of us there. We all went up, 3 of our students and our then president and other folks that were there as well. We were selected by the Military Edge magazine 2010-11 as one of the 101 best colleges for veterans. And our external collaboration, we could not be as helpful if it were not for the work we do with our other student services offices. I mean, that is a reality. We work internally with admissions for issues of residency, priority registration, and so forth. We work with DSPS, with the Career and Transition Program very closely. Counseling, we have 5 academic counselors that support our students with their coursework. We do what we call a course justification form each semester in lieu of the SEP, which is probably the same. So each semester, the counselor reviews those courses and calls a student in and so forth. We have 5 counselors that do that. We work very closely with tracking the students into EOPS. That is really, really important. And we have a new program, Express to Success. We walk them over and try to get them involved in that in the learning communities. We have a very good working relationship with the Foundation for SBCC. Our financial aid office, we work very closely with them. We have a MESA program. We have several veterans involved in our MESA program. We work closely with health and wellness. There is, students are allowed to have 5 personal counseling sessions on campus for personal counseling, and that's through our health and wellness. We work with student finance for the deferral. They have been just gracious about that whole process. The transfer achievement program, we walk people over, try to get them into the transfer achievement program, into our transfer academy. Our student senate has been wonderful. They provide us with funds so that when we do our Veterans Resource Day, we are able to provide lunches for all of our folks that come to participate, and tutorial services, and our food service that every year supports us during our Veterans Resource Day, offering a free cup of coffee to all of our veterans, students, staff, faculty as well. Our external partners, we work very closely. We have a very good working relationship with the VA clinic, with the VA County Service Office. We have contacts there, EDD, Employment Office, the County Mental Health. We also work with EDD, our 4-year institution, universities and college in our area, UCSB, Antioch University, and student clubs we work with. We do not have a student club on our campus. Our students have been reluctant to do that, but maybe they'll change their mind and want to have one. We do work very closely with the UCSB Veterans Club and the Veterans of Foreign Wars and the regional colleges and universities. And we also work very closely with Congressman Lois Capps' office, and one of her recent aides is a graduate from UCSB. He just graduated, and he is our contact. We've worked he was with their student club, and he works very, very closely with us, okay? Assembly member Doss Williams, we work with him very well. Independent Living Resource, Salvation Army, we refer people there. CalVet, we work with a gentleman, Calvin Angel, with the California Veterans Service Division. And of course, many more, and I just got the sign we're getting close to the end. Our events, Veterans Welcome Week, we do that the first week of each semester. We set tables up, Veterans Welcome tables set up, and provided information. These are staffed by the students, our work study students. We have a Veterans Appreciation Week that's held during the week of Veterans Day, during that week. And we have a resource day that week. It's usually on a Tuesday. And we had 23 off-campus agencies this year and 17 on-campus city college service providers participated, providing resource information. We had a noon recognition program with students, program, and all of our veterans kind of did the speaking, and they were also the MCs and so forth. We turned it over to them, and they were just really excited and did a wonderful job. And we have guest speakers and veteran student speakers. The food service, again, provides a free beverage for veterans during Veterans Appreciation Week. And we also do a Women, Veterans, and Military Women's Week, which is the 3rd week of March in California, and we always hold it during that time. And we have the same type of activity, Women, Veterans, and Military Women's Day, and we usually invite about 20 agencies, and then the on-campus information tables, and we have a noon program, and so forth. And there's just a picture of our activities, the Rice Award, and our program that we had for our event, and then our flyer that lists everyone that's going to come, and then our coupon down in the end. And goals, future goals. As a veteran student population grows, we will work creatively to expand our resources to effectively serve our veteran students. Provide veteran students with scholarships. We're working on that right now with our foundation. with scholarships to encourage continuing ed, their education. We want to continue to support our students with passion, commitment, and dedication. And I have to close with saying, even if you don't have a Veterans Resource Center, as long as you work with your students in passion, ideally we would all like to have one. I would love to have that space, but we have to work with what we have. And I think just doing creative things, connecting with your food service about the free cup of coffee, something so simple like that, just the students. Or when we have our program, we recognized 2 years ago all of the staff and faculty that were veterans. We gave them certificates of that recognition, and we honored them. Doing things like that and trying to keep it down. We go to Student Senate, they give us the money so that we can have the lunches. So there's so many little things that you can do and without having that center, and also working collaboratively, tracking those students, making sure they're getting EOP, making sure they're getting financial aid. You know, if they're eligible for the BOG, that they get the BOG. If they're not getting the VA post 9/11, and working with the dependents. We always hire a dependent in our program because the dependents can relate to each other. They understand military life. And so I try to hire at least 1 or 2 of those students, and working with them as well is very, very important, the wives or the students. And I think I've run out of time, so I want to thank you all and encourage you to just be passionate, love it, and it's just a great thing to be able to do. Thank you.
I was fortunate enough to be there when Magdalena and some of her students were presented with the John W. Rice Diversity Award, and her students talked about the impact of what's been going on at Santa Barbara City College on their transition and their success, and it was really wonderful to hear. Our next presentation is from Catherine Morris, who directs the Veterans Program at Sierra College in Rockland, California. She's both a counselor and a faculty member and a veteran. So here's Catherine.
Thank you. I'm definitely a veteran. I'm a Marine, so I got to move around. I got the high energy with my vets. It's a delight to be here, and I cannot tell you how wonderful it is to see so many faculty and staff and administrators coming here for the good of our veterans. Actually, if you go back real quick, I just wanted to mention, I started as, I served in the Marine Corps, and also I served 9 years in the Army and 2 years in the Air National Guard, but I'm not a combat vet. When I got hired at Sierra College, it was in 2000, it was before 9/11, and I made it my business to try and navigate through all the paperwork for the vets just to get the GI Bill. That in itself was fairly traumatic, but then 9/11 happened, and my population was around 200 when I started, and I'm now at 800, and that's all I do is veterans counseling. But what really affected me was having so many veterans started coming into my office and saying that they were more intimidated to go to college than they were in combat, and that's when I knew as a veteran and as a counselor I could do something about that. And what we started was the first thing that we did was actually the veterans and myself. We did the road home from combat to college in 2007, and we had about 250 folks from all over California and actually New York and Washington attend, and it was phenomenal. Probably the best piece about it was I think we had like 6 of my vets on the panel that really could talk from the heart about what their experiences are. Since then, we just actually did a Veterans Resource Fair, and I think I had about 30 VA folks and VFWs and AMVETS and Soldiers Project, and it was about connecting with the community. Any activities that I do with the vets, we've never had funding from day one, so we get very, very creative. We work at football games and raise money. We do car washes. The guys don't do much in bake sales, but everything that we've done, and this is what I want to encourage you, that you can be creative and you can make this happen, and finding out what it is that the veterans want. We also had the Vets Resource Center, but I won't go into that. What I was asked today was to maybe focus on some of the other pieces that I do. And so that's that. Next slide is because I had so many of the veterans that were so intimidated by going to college, and I meet with every single vet throughout their whole time at Sierra College. Sometimes I'll have 6 or 8 guys literally in my office all talking to me at the same time, and it's quite interesting when you get a bunch of people with ADD in there. What I wanted to do is I felt like as a counselor I needed more time to be able to explain everything that I needed to explain to these veterans regarding when we talked about what are you going to do with your life now, what kind of career plans. And so what I thought I would do is take one of our college success courses and just have a focus with veteran issues. The wonderful thing about that, I didn't have to go through the whole curriculum thing, is I just tweak it. But what we wanted to do is I had a colleague who was an English professor, and of course I hear from the English teachers all the time, you know, about their concerns when they see some of the writings that my veterans produce. And so I connected with the English professor, and so we actually linked our 2 courses together for the entire semester. And so the guys that are in my class also are in the English class for the whole 16 weeks. And it truly, truly builds that sense of community. And of course, one of the things that I wanted to do is I realized as a counselor, being a Marine myself and working predominantly, in my class I started with 35 students at the beginning of the semester, and we have 33 still enrolled, which is significant compared to what it is in most classes. And I really attribute that to, it's that learning community. It's if someone's missing in the class, everybody knows. And if anybody walks in late, the vets decided for themselves, is I actually put my class in a big circle. Because again, it's not about me being the professor and they're the students and I'm just going to fill them with knowledge. It's we're all in this together, and that's help each other out. But if anybody walks in late, the guys decided they put him in the center of the circle. So that helps wonderful. But what we did is the guys wanted to go and they like outdoor activities. They like the physicalness. And so what we've done, and I love the adventure part of it myself, is that we go on every semester now that we teach, we do some kind of a retreat. And it's depending on what the veterans want to do, what they're willing to do to help raise money, how much energy I have, and who out there in the community that might be able to help. But since then, I've done 4 ropes courses up in Lake Tahoe and in Colfax. And we always do an overnight adventure because to me as a counselor, it's giving them that time to decompress, to really just get outside, get away from all the worries and the stressors at home, and let's all come together and work as a team. And that's something I think as any veteran will say, it's that teamwork, it's that camaraderie that means so much to us. When that happens, is when the veterans, when they're willing to share and their time in their environment, they will definitely share, and that's when we can develop those support systems. In my class, it's always interactive, always, because that's just the way we are. And so what I did with the guys, and they never know what to expect when I come into the class for an activity, but I brought in some marshmallows and spaghetti sticks and said, guess what we're going to do today? And they were really scared. They weren't sure what they thought they were going to have to eat all the bags of marshmallows. But what I did is I put them in teams, and I had a little contest and said, okay, who can build the tallest tower in a short amount of time, and then have the tower actually stand up wins. And I had some little some Hershey chocolate kisses, because I just like to tease them as the female vet. And they got into it so much. It was like amazing. I mean, they, well, as veterans, are very, very competitive. But the thing is, we're having fun, but it's also, that's the times, and education should be fun. Who said that it has to be boring, dry, and you sit there and you take notes? So when we talk about team building, and what happened is the one gentleman, they call him Jesus, as you can see with the little long hair, he's the Army vet. He was a little more independent and very analytical, and so he was getting a little frustrated with the other guys because they weren't doing it the way he wanted to do it. So then he just pulled over and he's putting it together there. And so what was fun about this is it gave that opportunity to say, okay, how did the team work? How did that work in your teams? And then, of course, it opens up, and that's where you can create those learning environments. How did that work in the military? How did you adjust? How do you do that? How do you get along with others in the community that might think differently? How is it that when people don't understand what a DD-214 is or what an anniversary date is, how can you make that connection? And that's where these activities provide that environment. There's the motley crew there. We just did a whitewater rafting trip in October, and that was, again, an overnighter around the campfire. There's Tim, because he actually had a severe fear of heights. And it's like 40 feet up, and you have to jump off this little platform to catch the trapeze. And I was scared shitless myself. He wasn't going to do it. And so in our thing, it's all challenge by choice. And so we were like, hey, that's okay. You know, we're in this together. But when we finished up, he's like, you know what? No, I'm going to do this. And he wanted to do it not just for himself, but he wanted to do it for the team. And so, I mean, he was really standing there getting that courage to do it, and he did. And all the guys came around, and it was the intense support. And I think that's what these veterans need, because when they do leave the military, when you do leave that connection in your buddies, that's where the isolation comes in. And what happens here is, you know, they feel that connection, and that you take those times to, as those experiential times as teaching moments. And of course, you know, that's, I don't tell the guys this is what the retreats are all about, but for educators, this is exactly why we're doing what we're doing. This was actually at the whitewater rafting. I have actually 3 female vets in my class. All the females, actually half of my classes are all parents, and probably over half of them are single parents going through the statistics of divorce. And again, this just gives them a chance to connect and to unwind and to not feel alone. But at the same time, when we're talking about ways to get that adrenaline rush, that's what I do, is I try to provide them opportunities in a more healthy ways about, you know, getting that rush back and getting that connection, as opposed to riding the motorcycle 100 miles an hour down the freeway, or you know, the numbing and the drinking types of things. This was, again, one of the ropes courses. And you know, what I've learned, and as I'm learning through this, with the ropes courses, you can have different levels of ropes courses. You can have the low-level ropes courses, which are what's done on the ground, the 2 top ones, and then, of course, the more higher-level ropes courses as above, or even that's kind of in the middle. But the thing is, with the low-level ropes courses, what that does is that really focuses on the team building part of it, where the high level is more self-efficacy and, you know, that inner struggles that they work through. And the nice thing about the low-level ropes courses is, liability-wise, you're basically, there's no issues of danger, because everything's done on the ground. Although they could say danger for me, I fall all the time, but I rarely ever get hurt. But the team building, like there in that top one, we all had to step on. We had to have a foot on each other's foot, and we had to hold on to each other, and we had to stand up together, all 30 of us as a group. And it took us good 25 minutes, because when you get a bunch of vets together and they all think they know how to get it done, and so then it becomes who can talk the loudest over the other veterans. And eventually they find out that this is not working, and everybody's talking over everybody else. And so, again, that learning moment, let's stand back. How can you get along with others, and how can you work together as a team? And what I've learned to do, actually, is I take a lot of these activities now on my class. We did a tag where one person's blindfolded in the middle, and we set up boundaries where they can't step outside, although in my class we call it the perimeters. And if you step outside the perimeter, what happens? You get shot. So, and here again, it was a trust building, and I knew that this was going to be an issue for my guys, because they were in teams, and half the team had to be blindfolded. And I knew that was going to be an issue for the veterans. But at the same time, if I can encourage them, if I can provide a safe enough, trusting environment, then they will take that risk. And where their buddy who is sighted is going to help the buddy that's blind get through the little obstacle course and training. And again, using that to help them start rebuilding trust in society. This was the 2009 we did. Actually, one of the ladies offered us her condominium in Santa Cruz, and another gentleman was a vet who was a Vietnam vet. He owned a surfing company. So that time we turned it into a surfing company / writer's retreat, because it's about having fun and that adrenaline, but also never forgetting about helping these guys start dealing with some of the trauma or some of the difficulties that they're running into. And, again, I am a firm believer, if there's any way somehow if I had to say probably one of the most important things that I've discovered since 2000, and I know obviously I'm being subjective because I'm a counselor, but I think it's critical to have a trained counselor on the campus, because then that person's a faculty. They can advocate. They're master's degree, counselors. And if you can get the training on combat stress injuries, which is happening today, and if you can learn about what your local resources are and your VA resources, one of the things that I can build the trust with my veterans is that I have probably 400 business cards, and when I have a veteran that's having some issues, whether it be walking in with alcoholism or spousal abuse or homelessness, or they can't get the GI Bill paid, then I'm going to pull out my little card and connect them with a real person. And that builds that confidence that they have in me, that I know what I'm talking about, that I really can be able to help them, because they're not going to be successful in school if they're dealing with not being able to cover rent and food. One thing I also wanted to mention, and this is where I think it's critical as a veterans counselor, it was mentioned during lunch that we need to make sure and really push about career counseling for all of our veterans and college success. And I'm right up there. I could not agree with you more. The problem is, though, and then we run into the bureaucracy of the GI Bill. The GI Bill will normally not pay for veterans to utilize that to take a career class or a college success class. And so that's where, and as advocates, that we can come in and say, wait, this is BS. You're advocating that our veterans do need career counseling to help them get their lives. Community colleges, we have career counselors, we have counselors, we have career classes. I've been able to get around it because I learned the GI Bill process and I can navigate. So I continually rewrite the education plan to cover a particular class as a boots to books or a career class or even a typing class. And there's actually even some new ways to even navigate that I'm working with Linda, and we'll be sending out some information on there. But again, if you can, counselors and advocates can learn what the rules and the process of the GI Bill is, then we can step in there, and that's what I always do. I ask, well, why? Well, why? Well, how come? Well, how come? And I've been doing, I know I probably took off a lot of people by doing that, but then I find out, well, wait a minute, that rule was developed in 1970, and right, so let's make some changes. But that's where I need the other counselors and administrators to step up and help us and say, well, wait a minute, we're here to help the veterans, but we need to work together. So, thank you.
So just one word before I introduce our last panelist, just in case anybody's going to try to duck for the door when she finishes speaking and head for the freeway. I just want to say, if you possibly can, please stay for our veteran student panel. It's going to be one of the most rewarding pieces of this, I think, already very rewarding event. Please stay if you can. It'll be worth the traffic. So next, let me introduce Stacy Cook, who's Vice President for Student Services at De Anza College.
Thank you, Linda. Hello, it's good to see everyone. I want to start by introducing you to two people. One is Vicki Moreno. She's a counselor at De Anza College. Would you wave, Vicki? Then we have Joan Farrick, and she's with our A&R office. See, look at that. They're all queued up here. I mention that because I also want to mention Catherine's influence on me. In 2007, she sponsored the Road to Home. And what I learned from her was about learning communities. And one of the critical pieces about the learning community was the physical education part, getting people moving and involved in what they're doing as a part of their learning. So when I went to De Anza College, I was able to start talking about that too. I was invited here to speak about two things. The first is what we're doing at De Anza College, but also our experience with the Zellerbach grant. Now, I'll tell you a couple of things. The first one is my slides are not in your handout. However, they'll be on the web page. So I will go through this very quickly. My approach to doing slides is to let you read them, and I'll talk about what's not on the slides, okay? So, to get us started, I need your help. If you are very excited about working with veteran students, I want you to shout in your loudest voice, "Oh yeah." On the Wow! Very good. Thank you so much. We didn't even have to do it a second time. So you're all on board. So you see all of this information here. It's a brief description about our students. What you don't see is that we have 515 vets on our campus. Some are just floating around. Some of them are not official, they don't have their certifications, but they're still on our campus, they're attending classes, and they're trying to find their way. Data is wonderful. It gives us a profile of our students. But what you don't see are the hearts, the minds, and the aspirations of the students. When you work very closely with the students, that's exactly what you get. You get a sense of what their dreams are, what their fears are, where they're headed, and what they need from us. So what are we trying to figure out today? We're trying to figure out how to best help those students. So it's nice to know that we transfer 71 students with no AA. But what about those who have no clue about what they want to do? We still have an obligation to assist them as well. So how can we do that? We can do that by definitely working with the resources that we have and getting to know the students. I have another question for you. Raise your hand if you work directly with student veterans. Excellent. So when you leave here today, I'd like you to think about what you can do differently to help them even more. Given limited resources, given all the constraints, what is the extra step you can take to help them even more? Next slide, please. So our team, and this relates to the Zellerbach grant, our team, and I really thank the Chancellor's Office. They selected 3 colleges to participate in this pilot training program. And it was a pilot training program to help faculty understand veterans. What to do when they show up on campus, how to work with them in the classrooms, how to identify PTSD, depression, all of those things that we hear about, TBI. But that's not the whole veteran, that's not the whole person. But this training session was to really allow the faculty to connect more with veterans in a different way. So you see a whole list of people there, right? Who you don't see is our president. He's not listed. He's such a staunch and strong supporter of veterans. He makes certain that when we ask, can we do this, that, and the other, he says yes. I'm not up there. I'm a staunch supporter of veterans. There's so many very dedicated people that we don't see on our campuses, that we may not have invited them in to be supporters of veterans. So I ask once again, when you get back to your campus, think about who shows up in the room to help students, and then think about those who aren't and invite them in. So we have 4 general counselors who are dedicated to working with student veterans. We also have a DSS counselor, our Disability Student Services counselor, who also works with veterans. We have many people in A&R. We have a certifying official who's the frontline person who works with veterans. Guess who else works with veterans? Our student veterans. They have a student club, and they are the face of veterans on the campus. They're out there looking for their colleagues, their former peers. They're looking for others that they can bring in and help. who you also don't see as a member of our team, also connects with the student veterans who work in the A&R office. We got input from them when we were trying to shape what we would do with the Zellerbach grant. So that was our team, our campus team. And just to give you a glimpse of the services that we offer, and you'll find this on our webpage, but it's all of this and it's more. So what you don't see is the connection with disability student services. You don't see the breadth of the involvement with A&R. You don't see the commitment from all of general counseling. And you don't see one person in particular, and his name is John Swenson. He's a veteran. He's also an English faculty person, and he's just a driving force in making certain that we are serving veterans well. So remember, once again, when you see some of this information, think about what's missing, and then try to bring it all together to enrich what it is that we need to do. So the Zellerbach grant opportunity. The benefits of participation were great because it brought the entire college together to look at veterans, how we serve them, and what we can do better to grow. What happened as a result of that, especially among the faculty ranks, when we put out the call, and on the next slide you'll see the flyer that we circulated on campus. When we put out that call, there was such a great response because faculty were hungering to learn about what they could do in their classes. They know that they have veterans in their classes, and they were wondering, well, what do I do if I know that a student is absent a lot? How do I handle that? Or if I have a student who disappears at certain times of the quarter. We're on the quarter system, by the way, so things move really quickly. So sometimes it's hard to figure out and discern what's going on with the student. But they were wondering what happens with certain students and how can I help them succeed? This pilot project helped us to bring together both full and part-time faculty to address their concerns and to answer those questions. The workshop team, I'm sure many of you know of Betsy Sheldon. It's Betsy Sheldon, and then also Mike Vanderwood, he's from Swords to Plowshares, and then Dr. David Joseph, who's a speaker here today. They were the team that put on the workshop. The workshop was really great because it talked about military culture from a psychologist's perspective. And then we had Mike, who actually is a veteran, and he talked about military culture from a veteran's perspective. And Betsy, she's the one who pulled it all together for us so that we could have it on campus. So I have the slide in here because what you don't see is all of the hard work that they did to make this happen for us. So I wanted to acknowledge them. So after Zellerbach, and you know this time goes really quickly, so you can see the next steps. What we also did this shortly after the training session is we had a focus group with veteran students. We wanted to find out from them directly, what are their experiences, what are their needs, how can we better serve them and help them? And you know what I love is that as we all bring a different personality and sense of humor to the room, so did they. But they bring an edge of honesty that sometimes we find difficult to hear, but we need to hear it. And so it was a wonderful opportunity for us to really learn how we could improve our services. So what's not here? Think about it on your campus. How often are you talking to your veteran students and asking them, how can you serve them better? What do they need? Because we have it all together too. We think we know what students really need. We know some things definitely, but we also need to hear from them, how we can better serve them and what they actually need. So remember their voices in all of this. And what's sort of kind of tricky but very critical that you don't see here is working with campus police. It is very important to work with campus police because sometimes we all have meltdowns, but sometimes the way that a veteran will have a meltdown is very different from others. And so we want to make certain that campus police are sensitive to that. They know the right questions to ask, and they know how to handle it. Last night in the performance, there was a very real situation in terms of road rage. We've had a similar situation happen on our campus, and we don't know who the person was, but it tracked very closely to a disproportionate response to something that was, just every day. We all get cut off in traffic, right? Or we cut people off in traffic. You choose which one. But our responses are very different. And so it's usually in proportion. We calm down and we let it go and we move on. But when someone won't, that could be a sign that there's something else going on. So when our police respond, we want to make certain that they are very well aware that they may be walking into a very different situation with a student, and then to assist them as they can. So that's what you don't see here. Also, what you don't see here, and we have the benefit of at our college, is the high-tech center training unit, which provides adaptive technology for students in general, but also for student veterans. And how can they benefit from that adaptive technology? Does anybody know? Can anybody name one program that a student could benefit in terms of adaptive technology? Yes. Exactly. Tell us what that does for them. Mm-hmm.
Yet they won't recognize that they have that learning disability because they've been out of school for so long. Sometimes if they put the book in the system will give it back to them. Or if they can't see and they do not know where that's, even I don't know where that's, and I'm not a veteran, but the system that they will go to the figure that will go to the screen and they can also.
That's exactly right. Kurzweil is a program that is a book reader, and it helps so many people. So if you have memory problems, it helps you to go over the material and to hear it differently. If you're an auditory learner, it's another way to learn the information very deeply. If you have visual impairment, it's a way that you can learn the materials. What you also didn't see on that slide was the concept of universal design. Universal design in education, or in terms of ADA, it means if you make something accessible for the person who's least able to access something, you've opened up the world to everybody. So for example, the adaptive technology that we were just talking about was developed for students with disabilities, but it also helps older students, anybody with any visual impairments or any other kinds of challenges. So it's a way to make certain that all of our students are able to access information. So having said all of that, we're very proud of the work that we're doing. We have a lot more to go, and in terms of looking at the resources that you have, start with what you have, wherever you are, and then pull it together, bring in the people who aren't in the room, make certain that they're your partners. Also, we like to put titles on things. We want to call it a resource center. We want to say that this is the place to go. It would be lovely to have a place to go, but why not make every place on campus the place to go? So I will leave you with that, and I thank you for your attention, and I'll turn it back over to you, Linda.
So do those microphones work, or is it just this one?
No, they work. I think
Say something.
Hello?
Yeah, they work. Okay. So I will welcome your questions and your comments. Right there, black shirt.
Yeah, real quick about the Zellerbach Foundation. I had the opportunity to speak with them at Betsy Sheldon way back, and she was juggling probably a dozen different things in addition to that. At that time, I think she told me that after they did one of the new folks, they were looking at somehow getting that statewide or available college statewide.
Can I respond?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
actually, that's exactly what we're doing. That's why Dr. David Joseph is here. He's done a component of the Zellerbach training, and the student panel is also part of what we've developed through the Zellerbach contribution. For those of you who don't know, the Zellerbach Family Foundation is a San Francisco based foundation. They had been doing quite a lot of work in the area of mental health, and then they started to realize the necessity of focusing on returning veterans and wanted to marry their mental health and their veterans work. So they invited us to submit a proposal, and we're able to directly fund 3 colleges that had to be in the Bay Area because that's their area of focus. But all of the materials that were developed are being used in various forms of trainings throughout the state. We've just had some renewal of the grant, and so during the lunch, there was an announcement about a free opportunity to go through the Zillerbach training as part of the Community College Financial Aid Conference in Sacramento next week or 2 weeks. The information is at the registration table. So, you know, we're trying to make those materials available that way. Uh-huh. Okay.
Oh, yes, and
The-
this is the flyer.
Repeat the question.
Or, oh, I'll now repeat the question. She asked if she could get the flyer, the promotional material that we sent to the campus regarding the workshop. My answer was yes, and I have a hard copy for you now.
Anyone else? Teresa.
Where do you start if you have nothing really? I mean, we have little pieces of people who see the veterans, but other than that, that's all we have. So, and I've learned so much about so many things, so I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, so what really should be the next step?
So that the question was, where do you start if you have bits and pieces, but really nothing focused on your campus?
I would start with holding a meeting, sending an email out, and getting people together to talk about that. And from there, you can maybe go from there.
In my case, again, in 2007, I tried to find another veterans counselor in California, and I couldn't, and it was very discouraging. So we started with doing the Road Home Symposium and just inviting people. We thought it was just going to maybe be 50 people. You know, ours ended up with 250 folks, but it's finding those like-minded people that want to help. And I think, as Dr. Cook said, see what's on your resources. Our campus has not received any funding, and you know, which has made us become very, very creative. And I think that's bringing in the faculty, finding out what resources that are available that are no charge. We have the Vet Center therapist that comes on the campus and actually attends all of my classes to connect with the veterans. I've received, back in '08, training at the National Center on PTSD for a week long. That was no charge. There's so many resources that you can get some education. And again, we didn't have a Vets Resource Center until about a year ago, and it was my office. I mean, literally, I would be standing in the corner because the vets are sitting on my chairs and my computers. They were counseling each other about resources. I'm talking to all of them, and we did that for 3.5 years, and then it just kind of built it up.
I have a couple of suggestions. The first is start with your president, your vice presidents, get their buy-in, get their support, and then rally your troops. You have so many on campus already who work with veterans. So, for example, the list of my team that I listed, you want to talk to the people in A&R. They're usually the certifying officials. They're the first stop or contact for many veterans on campus. Definitely work with your counselors. They're the ones who really develop the ed plans for the students. If they're not, then help them to do that. They can be tricky, and sometimes they don't want to do them because they take a lot of time.
You know about those tricky counselors, Teresa.
However, it's well worth it, and so make sure that you connect with your colleagues in counseling. DSS, your Disability Student Services, DSPS, they connect with veteran students as well. Your faculty, Reach out to your faculty. They have the students in their classrooms. Also, financial aid and health services. There are many people on campus, and you can handpick them as your core team, and then put out the general call for all the campus to come together. That would be my recommendation.
You know, one thing I wanted to add that was another freebie is utilizing the veteran student workers, because the VA, even though it's not a lot of money, the VA will pay them minimum wage as long as they're certified for at least 9 units. And I have 8 VA work-study students, and they can help with any kind of outreach. And we can always give you more information if you're interested in doing that.
Beth?
I was just going to mention, if you need to sell it on your campus, we have a saying at SMC from our veterans: when you've met one vet, you've met one vet. And if you need to sell it, the best way to sell it, set up student vet panels on your flex days, on your student or your faculty and staff departmental days. Have them hear it from the source, because that galvanizes people, it wakes them up, and it makes them aware of the fact that maybe that person sitting so jittery in the corner of their classroom actually is paying attention, but there are issues, and they don't know that they don't hear it from the vets. Your vets are your #1 ambassadors.
And just a suggestion, if you want to identify yourself in your college, because, you know, there's a lot of experience in this room, I think, so it would be helpful if people knew who to talk to. So,
Repeat what you said for that recording.
I don't think I can.
Student vets or your
Can
advanced?
somebody repeat that, what you said?
I think in a
Talk to
nutshell, utilize the
veterans, talk to veterans, I got that. You've met one vet, you've met one vet. And so you need to rally your veteran students to find out exactly what their needs are and build around that.
And the veterans, they're the best ambassadors.
That's right. Yes. I think that what she said is very, very true. You have all those resources out there. It's just about organizing them together and utilizing them. That's all it is. And they will help you very much in being successful in what you do.
Okay, the gentleman and then, yep. Okay.
Aw.
Heather Raines, I'm from Mount Sac, LA County. But I know a big part, I'm a veteran myself, use my GI Bill. I'm permanent staff at Mount Sac as the Veterans Services Specialist. But I know a big thing is a task force on your campus. I started in 2007 as a student on that task force because I was so opinionated at the lack of services offered. But I know that, yeah, reaching to your student veterans first is a great place to be, and if all you have is yourself, a certifying official, you have a bill for those students who will help you. If you say, you know what, I want to put on this panel, but I don't have a resource center, I have these other ways to get them, but I do know that I see this one vet every term, or he or she stops by my office a couple times a term. Ask them to come and speak on your panel. I know I do flex day presentations as staff and as a student veteran for where I went to school and now where I work. And it's really well received. And you'd be surprised at how many faculty and staff members just weren't aware of the veteran population on your campus. Or they weren't aware that that student in their class that is on that panel was their student and they loved them. You know, so it's I definitely disagree that it's really about reaching out to your veteran students. You know, like I was saying, if you don't have a space for them, like a resource center, you know, as a certifying official or someone who works with them, that veteran student you can reach to and say, you know, hey, I have this panel I'd like to do. Would you do it? You know, would you like to speak on it? Because I know that they're more than willing. I know my vets, I call them my vets. I know my vets are more than willing to tell you how they feel and what they feel is needed. So that's all. Thank you.
I just had a quick question for Catherine. Is your guidance course count for AA degree and/or transfer?
This is where I utilize my creativity. The course is PD1. It's actually there's 2. It is actually only an elective, And so this is where I read the VA manuals about how you can, veteran can get payment. And so any class, if it's not required for the general ed, or if it's not required for the major, but if it's required for electives, then and what I do is I write up an education plan with a degree that requires electives, at least for that first semester, because part of the rules are you can change your education plan as often as you want. This is where the work comes in, although actually I can whip out education plans in 30 seconds because the more you do, the better you get at it. But something that just happened at our regional rep meeting at the chancellor's office is, this has obviously been a major issue for me, is like I can always, 99.9% of the time, I can always figure out a legal way to get the veteran paid for multiple goals for different classes that they want, but it shouldn't have to be that way. And so there was myself and quite a few of the counselors here at the chancellor's office, and we had the VA auditors who come and review our education plans. We brought this issue up about the difficulties that we have as counselors trying to help these veterans. And so what ended up coming out of that meeting is that the auditor said, basically in a nutshell, is we can only approve what is in your catalog. So basically what then happened was we had a further discussion, and it came to then, well, in our catalog, if we were to add under the veterans page where we just explain, the GI Bill or whatever information, if we add in there a sentence or two that says that a veterans counselor has the authority to add additional courses on an education plan, obviously with the agreement of the vet, then the VA will approve that, because in a nutshell, they will approve anything that is in our catalog. So it's like, so we actually, I think I have a meeting next week to go ahead and refine that. Actually, it's really 2 or 3 sentences. It's that simple, and that's why it's so critical as faculty and as administrators is to challenge the VA, in a nice way, but to question. And so we finally got to that piece if that's the case. So once that happens, if every college was to go ahead and add a couple sentences in there, then you would basically, as long as you can legitimately justify why that class is, rather it be a college success, rather it be a career class. My thing was, like, I had vets that don't know how to type. Well, how are they going to be successful in an English class or a history class if they can't type a term paper or their papers? And then, so now I can add all of those.
Catherine just brought this to my attention at the end of the luncheon, and so she's going to work with our office with Mike Deere and figure out how to get the word out to all the colleges. Of course, maybe we should let you test it first, Catherine, and see if the VA doesn't back off when you actually start doing it.
This is just really quick. Could you repeat those sentences? Like, so I can write them down.
Which, you mean like the classes, or you mean how I get them?
What your catalog, what you said, what your part was changing a few sentences?
Well, we haven't actually said it exactly, but I've been kind of formulating this in my head, is that the VA, what we were told by the auditors, that the VA will approve whatever is in our catalog. So in our catalog, I'm sure everybody has some page at the beginning about veteran benefits. Then we are going to add a couple of sentences that will state something to the fact that a veterans counselor, when they write up the education plan for the vet, may add additional courses into the education plan with the agreement, with the vet. I mean, basically what I'm trying to say is we're not going to force a vet to promote student, right, to the success of their educational goals, which would be wonderful, because then that would save counselors having to continually rewrite a plan, which is how I get around it right now. But this would save a lot of time and be able to justify. And honestly, what happens here is I'm going to tell the VA, bring it on, because if they want to later on come back and say, well, no, we are not going to pay for that class, that college success or that career class, I'm going public with it. Let the community, that the VA is promoting, that community colleges support their veterans and help them with career planning and help them transition. Well, that's exactly what we're trying to do. So, and that's what I've learned over the last 10 years is, again, 99.9% of the time, I never run into a problem with getting a class approved. Even like in a math class, for instance, the VA may say, well, they cannot take a lower level math class than they assessed into. But sometimes that vet either has combat stress injuries, anxiety, they get into that math class and they find out immediately they are way in over their head. So I challenged the VA on that, and now I can do that anytime the vet requests that they want to drop down lower. I put that in the education plan, and I have the math instructor's name to back me up that that was the appropriate level, and I've never had a problem. And I do that. I have all kinds of situations like that. If you can justify it, they will back down.
My name's Gracie Spear, and I'm a counselor for veterans at the North Centers, which is Centers of Reedley College up in the Fresno area. And my question to everything that you've said is kind of what I do. I mean, I'll go back and forth doing a vet plan, you know, is can we get it in writing? You know, you said the auditor said, you know, because when I go to the certifying official, she says, Gracie, can you give me something in writing that I can have in their file? You know, so to me, then there it is, you know. So can we get it in writing from the auditor?
Well, I don't think the auditor, I think you might sometimes run into a little bit of an issue there. So what I do is I look at the WAVES manual. It's the rules, it's the Bible, and it says that anything that is in our catalog is approved. So, you know, in my case, well, the thing is, you know, and that's where it's kind of a interesting change or difference from what I noticed at colleges, because the counselor is responsible for what's on that education plan. And when we get audited, I'm getting audited by my education plan. So it's not up to the certifying official to override what's on my education plan. So I you know, I'll stand up there in court and anywhere else to back up what I'm doing. I mean, that's something, I don't think an individual auditor is necessarily going to do that. So in my case, I'm going to go for it, which is what I've been doing. Sometimes I get in a little bit of trouble, but 99% of the time, it's always to the benefit of the vet.
I have kind of a separate question. For those of you who have teamed up, and I know Magda has, with community agencies, have you gone out to the faith community to see about coming on campus and providing faith services for the different areas? Because we're creating a veterans resource. I'm from Chabot College, and I know one of the things I'm going to do is go to the different faith communities, churches, temples, whatever in our area, and ask them to come in and see how they fit. Have any of you done that?
I tread lightly on that, because what I found over the years is I get contacted every week by everybody from different, once they find out that we have the veterans there. Like I say, it's a little difficult, because sometimes what I find out is there's some kind of hidden agenda there where they want to meet with the vet, and like in a certain situation is they don't necessarily divulge their kind of agenda is to, you know, kind of bring that veteran into their faith-based. So I've kind of pulled away from that, because sometimes it opens up a whole can of worms, because then you let in one faith-based and yeah, I know.
We actually were approached by the VA chaplain in Palo Alto, and because we have a faculty member who's a very strong vet and who's really involved in the community, there's a linkage there. And so he was able to talk to the students in the vet club to ask if this would be of value to them, if this was something they wanted. Mm-hmm. And some of them said yes. So that was our way of connecting, if you will, with the faith community. And remember, with chaplains, they cover every belief, okay, or even non-belief. So you do want to tread lightly, but not shy away, because there are spiritual needs that everybody has, but the veterans in particular. So the idea is to pay attention to the students and to hear what the students have to say about it, and to honor that.
Okay, I just want to let everybody know we have about 5 minutes left, so we'll take as many questions as we can.
You've all been wonderful resources, but I know that most of us who work with veterans, Renee Tuller, Grossmont College, is the biggest shift, Catherine, is what you just said on if counselors sign off on it. That's a huge shift for some of us, because I've also worked with a lot of VA auditors and Sacramento on this. I understand if they have elective units, but my understanding, like many of us, the certifying official won't certify it. It's kind of like the federal guidelines for financial aid. If it is not, what my understanding is by what their interpretation is, if in the catalog, the associate's degree, the major prep, I understand the remediation because you can do multiple measures and sign a form where the counselor makes that distinction. But on the typing type classes, if they do not have electives, that has traditionally been non-certifiable, period. So, and most of us won't take a chance on $2,200 a month for that, you know, for those units not to be counted or to be retroactively pulled. If this is the case, most of us are going to need that in writing, because this is different under the VA catalog. It's the understanding that most of us have is that if it is not on the degree pattern, it will not be certifiable. So if this is true, this is huge, because I know financial aid won't do it. So, I mean, we need this in writing for the state, if that's true.
Well, I think what I've always needed, though, is like I work 7 days a week, usually 10 to 15 hours a day. I need other counselors and stuff to come together and support, and instead of me kind of going out there and trying to do this, I need other counselors to all come together and we submit that question. The other thing that would be very helpful too is utilizing people like Trevor Albertson, the deputy secretary. He's come to my campus twice and said he will back us up 100% and support us. And so one of my things would be actually is that some of this stuff actually needs to get changed in legislation. It should be that, you know, we shouldn't have to do this nickel and dime and one piece at a time, but that's where if we could be united
I understand
as a group.
that, but most of us are not going to take that chance.
No, I'm not saying take the chance. I'm saying to come together and that we as a group, then if we want this in writing, instead of just saying, well, Catherine wants it in writing, it would be that the community college system, that this is what we've been told, and then we want this in writing as a united group. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And just to reiterate with that, because I'm with Catherine on the Chancellor's Community College regional rep, and what we're doing, and also to answer your question, we're having that meeting, and the auditors, the two main auditors from the north and south, will be coming on the 16th, and we're actually, that is on the calendar to put that verbiage in to help you within your catalogs, you know, because our veterans are coming back, and yeah, they may have been at pre-calculus level, and all of a sudden they took off to war and came back, you know, 3 years later. This is what happened to my son. And he's not in calculus, you know, he's in algebra 1, you know. So with that said, his test scores were up here, and so we had to bring him down. But we want to make it general, because there's 112 community colleges, so there's a lot of power in this room right now. And as regional reps, and in your packets, you'll see who is your regional rep. You know, I'm 5, Catherine is, we can't remember. But during that day, that on the 16th, we're all going to come together, and we're going to put that, we're going to put verbiage on to help you within your catalogs. But then it is up to you, those who are within curriculum committees and so forth, to push that forward for us. Okay, and I know that those who are of you who are certifying officials, because on our campus we have certifying officials, and then you have the veteran counselors. Those certifying officials cannot certify anything unless I verify that. And without that, you know, and it's always been a certifying official, unless you're a counselor and you've had that master's degree, you know what degrees are being offered and what transferred and doesn't transfer and what's remedial. That's really the way VA intended it, was for the counselors to sign off of those, and then the certifying officials approve that. So it will be, you know, if you can attend, we would love to have you. And we are actually going to plan to do a petition that day that this is what we would like, and hopefully all colleges would you know, promote that verbiage within their catalogs. You can put it in as an addendum, okay?
May I add just one other thing, and it relates to the vet students being ambassadors. Oftentimes we can't convene a panel of students, but what if we shared their success stories? What if we did that, just in a visual way, and we would always have that, as well as stories about how they've overcome challenges, as we all do. That can be so powerful and encouraging to students, but also it informs our college community about the experiences that students have with us.
Well, I think we're just about out of time, but what a perfect ending to a good session. I think what you've just heard highlights the tremendous advances that we're making as a system, because in the Chancellor's office, we are now able to convene the regional reps, convene experts, work with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We're really, trying to build our ability to support what you need to do on campus to help our veteran students. And I think that we're making a lot of progress. And it's thanks to people like our wonderful panelists and many of you in the audience. And thank you very much for being here and for what you do for our students.